Fear Street Part 2 1978 is the second film in this Fear Street trilogy, which we are very fortunate to get this year. It's pretty damn cool, especially with the lull in material that we have in 2021 because of the pandemic in 2020. Not a lot of stuff was filmed, and we're starting to see kind of the repercussions of that by getting a bunch of shelved films because they're trying to fill that void. And movies have kind of sucked this year, honestly. I mean, there's been a few good ones, obviously. I've loved a few, like Benny Loves You and Bloody Hell and Saint Maud, which I finally got to see this year. But man, this has been a rough year. And having something like this to look forward to that I find to be pretty quality is very, very needed in this time. And I feel like July, if not late June, early July, has been really, really good. I've seen a lot of films that I've enjoyed, this being yet another one of them. Now, if you watched my review on the last one, I quite enjoyed that one. It had that 80s slasher vibe, even though it was set in the 90s. And this one has the 80s slasher vibe, except for it's set in the 70s. So it's funny that they're going off of the 80s slasher vibe, and they never hit the 80s. They kind of skip by it just by a couple years on both sides of it. But regardless, you can do an 80s slasher vibe in any era, but I just kind of found that funny. But yeah, this one I actually liked more than the first one. This one had characters that I just liked a little bit better. You've got the girl who plays Max from Stranger Things in here. Somebody told me that this film was originally, or these films were originally produced by somebody else and then Netflix picked it up. I find that kind of odd since Max is in this from Stranger Things, but that's probably a coincidence. But when I saw her, I was like, oh yeah, Netflix. And then I remembered somebody saying that, and I was like, oh, I wonder if maybe the second film was picked up by Netflix, and then that's why they used somebody from, Netflix type stuff, because Netflix does have a lot of crossover. But yeah, the girl who plays Max in the later season of Stranger Things, she plays the main character here, who goes by the name of Ziggy. And this is told in a flashback, which I had assumed watching the first one, letting it being like, or leaving it off being a to be continued, much like Back to the Future 2 and 3. And I was like, how are they going to incorporate these kids but also go back to 1978? And I was like, oh, well, okay, I see. They're probably going to do it in like a flashback, or maybe they're researching. But no, it's the flashback. So they go and they meet up with the girl who called them. And she tells the story of her time at Camp Nightwing. And this is a camp slasher. Now, of course, I think another reason why I would like this one more is because this is more geared towards my appreciation and liking and nostalgia for slasher films. It's set at a summer camp, and I saw some reviews on this saying that the kids were so stupid and that they didn't like them and this and that. These kids all felt like typical slasher archetypes and whatnot, but there's actually some pretty the acting in both of these so far, from the kids and everyone involved, has been very good for what it's called for. It's solid. The production value is solid. The first one featured a fantastic kill with like this, was it a bread slicer? Is that what that was? That was fucking fantastic. Probably still my favorite kill in this, but this one has a couple really like vicious, brutal kills that are like kind of more mean-spirited. I shouldn't say more mean-spirited. Putting someone's head through a fucking slicer that is pretty mean-spirited. But this one has, because we know the killer that's going to be in this. It's this burlap sack freaking Jason Voorhees looking dude from Friday 2, of course, without the eye hole. Wearing the plaid shirt, and you can kind of tell who it's going to be just once I threw on the film, and I remembered the first film. It was a whole week ago. Wow, amazing. And I was like, oh, I mean, that's going to be the killer right there. He's wearing the same fucking outfit as the killer in the first one, which was kind of cool, doing it in this prequel way and having the killers come one after the other. And knowing what time periods they're from, and then kind of seeing the origins. Shit, at this point, I'm kind of sad that we don't get to see the origins of all of these killers. The chick who's like cutting herself from the '60s, and that little kid with the creepy ass mask, and there's a whole bunch of killers that pop up in here, and I'm like, fuck, I'd watch a whole movie on that one. Make it a Conjuring universe where you got the nun and whatever, do their own branch off movies. I'm fine with that, and maybe they will. Who knows? That'd be kind of cool. Do a spin-off where you get to see that kid killer. I could definitely see that being possible with how popular these films are right now. So keep our fingers crossed on that one, because that would be super cool, especially if they're going to bring them at the quality that they're bringing these at. This is a really fun, good slasher that has some good kills, some good character development, some good acting. There's things in it that are kind of convenient or eye-rolly for a second here or there, but for the most part, I was really into this. I had a good time with this one. This is definitely a worthwhile slasher, coming off of the back of another worthwhile slasher. And it very much leaves off, and I mentioned the Back to the Future 2 and 3 thing because it very much leaves off in a way that reminded me of Back to the Future 3, where they kind of show a trailer to the third one right after it. And I'm not going to say anything more, but if you watch that, which I watched only maybe 10, 15 seconds of it, but I started to see some things that were like, oh, they're going like this route with it, very, very Back to the Future 3. Interesting. And the whole to be continued, like Back to the Future 2 does say. It kind of feels like an homage to that. And I'm very, very much looking forward to 1666. As I had previously stated in my last review, I always wanted that Blair Witch prequel film. This is about a witch. It's the third film, and we're going back to her origins of 1666. So this is kind of like my Blair Witch film that never happened. And we're following characters that we've come to know now into this story where we're going to get there. How this is going to be told, we'll see. I have my assumptions just based on the trailer. But I'll be very curious to see how it plays out. But I am very much looking forward to it, especially a period piece that's set back in time that much. I mean, obviously, this entire franchise so far has been a period piece from 1994 to 78 to 1666, but this is like way, way, way back. So yeah, really, really looking forward to that. I recognized a few faces here and there within this one that I liked seeing, and I was like, oh yeah, she was just in, the girl that they go to meet is the girl who was just in that movie Come Play, where the kid has the imaginary friend that like popped up on a computer screen or like came through his app or whatever. And I remember remarking when I reviewed that movie, because I did quite like that movie, that the performance from the mom was great. I thought it was like, wow, this is good stuff here. But yeah, she's in this, and she's quite good. And I think, I dig everyone in this. If this is a really, really cool thing that Netflix has done this year, like 3 slasher films in a row in like a 2-week period. That's pretty kick-ass. So this is definitely one of the better things of 2021. Yeah, no, I know I said that this isn't the greatest year, but we do still have a fuck ton of stuff coming out. I mean, just this month, we have some really, really great stuff, like The Green Knight, which is, one of my most anticipated films of the year. I think The Night House comes out in a couple weeks. Got Escape Room and Champions of Tournaments coming out this month, next week, actually. Got a lot of good potential fun horror flicks, really, really quality horror flicks. But this is definitely great stuff. I mean, this is all going to be released in July. So July seems to be a pretty damn good month for horror, and I'm all here for it. I'll be back to talk about 1666 in, a week, 6 days now. But yeah, I mean, what are you guys thinking about these? Do What did you think about the first one versus the second? Did you like this? I thought they were pretty comparable, and the style's really good. And I do wish that movies would stop using music that's so popular and has been used a million times. Maybe it's cheaper to get because it's used so much. I don't know. But there's a lot of Bowie stuff going on in here, which is cool. And they kind of connect it, bridge it through like a Nirvana 90s cover versus, and I'm sure if you know Nirvana and you know David Bowie, you'll know what that bridge is. But I thought that was kind of cool to bridge the 90s to the 70s by the same song played by two different artists of the time that were big. And then there's a lot of, not a lot, but there's a decent amount of Bowie influences here. But yeah, it's a cool film. It's not just thrown together. Like, this has an overarching narrative that really blends together well, and I think this will be a good triple feature in the end. Once it's all said and done, going back to this and watching them back to back like this will be rewarding, because you're going to pick up on things that were in the last film that were mentioned here, and it should be that way. If you're filming them together, there's no reason there should be any continuity errors in the story. If there is, that's just lazy. So I will be very curious to watch all three of these eventually back to back, and to pick up on all the little plot points and whatnot that I'm missing watching it like this and not really knowing the full scope. This will definitely be something to be fun to rewatch later. But anyway, let me know what you thought about these. Adios.